FlimFlam film fans, and this is what we just watched. It could be a movie, it could be a trailer, it could be a TV show, but this is about the thing that we just watched. I'm Chris.
Nerd.
And this week we just watched Marvel Studios' Moon Knight Episode 3 exclusively on Disney+. Spoiler warning, we are going to talk spoilers for the episode. If you haven't seen it, hit pause, go watch it, come back, but we'll wait. But we just watched Moon Knight Episode 3. So, Episode 3, I got a text from Ed, after he watched it, said, this episode is a lot better than episodes 1 and 2. So, hopefully we'll hear Ed give a favorable opinion of an episode of Moon Knight. We'll see. So this episode has a lot of action. Not a lot of action, but it has a lot of things. It has got a lot of scenes of stuff. It shows a lot of stuff and stuff happens, moves the plot forward a little bit. Opens up with two kind of really short scenes of Layla getting a passport to Egypt and Harrow using the scarab to find the tomb of Amit. They just kind of have that, but we kind of really open up with Steve chasing down kind of a lead to lead him to Harrow, and this is where we get like kind of one of the main plot points of the series. A big thing about the series is that he doesn't seem to have full control over the body. It seems like Steven is getting back in control, taking over a little bit, kind of like when Steven was going through with the van driving the cupcakes, and we see Mark kind of black out and then wake up in a different situation. But in these scenes, it seems like it ends with Mark having stabbed some people and Steven, the personality, going, I didn't do it.
What'd you do?
Yeah. So it possibly seems that there's a third personality inside the Mark Steven thing. What'd you think about that?
What they imply. I thought the interesting was kind of interesting. The opening was kind of interesting. Just to mention or ask real quick, the very first opening scene that you mentioned, with Layla getting the passport, I didn't catch if there was a different name on there.
I did not either.
So it's alluded to because I wanted to look up possibly who the character was, and they alluded to it being her mother. I didn't really get that impression while watching this.
I got the impression that it was her mother, that like she was working with her mother. I was also very interested in how easy it is to apparently make a fake passport. Like apparently, if you're a production company, you can go out and get all the equipment that you need to make a fake passport.
Yeah. So yeah, and then it jumps immediately into Mark just running on rooftops, which immediately reminded me.
It actually jumps to Harrow first, and then to Mark. But
Harrow, what was that scene with Harrow?
That's just Harrow in the desert following the scarab for like a minute, and then it's like one of the goons tells Harrow like Mark is in Cairo, and then it jumps to him chasing.
Right. And that reminded me a bit of Tom Cruise's The Mummy, which I'm sure you've seen before.
Yeah, it was one of my favorite mummy movies.
Favorites of that year.
Without Brendan Fraser.
100% less Brendan Fraser.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear your review of those movies, but it felt like that, like it was very set piece heavy, and then he's just running on the rooftop, randomly chasing these three dudes that they were like followers of Amit?
Yeah, I think they were followers of Harrow. They were working with Harrow, and then they stabbed a fourth dude who was the guy that Mark was trying to get to interview or interrogate about where Harrow was.
Right. I just wish we could see a little more about how Mark is, I guess, this world's greatest detective, or at least Egypt's greatest detective. because it's just like he's asking random like tea sellers on the street, like, "Hey, do you know where this scarab is?" And they're like, "Oh no." It, so we just jump into him immediately chasing these dudes, and again we get the more of him blacking out and waking up, and a couple times later they're all dead.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it would be cool to see a little more of who Mark is, I guess, since he's more interesting. This episode definitely leans into Steven being more of a background comedic character, which I think is the right place for that character.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. Mm,
And you don't know.
mm,
So another
I know.
interesting thing. So I watched a video on another channel that was explaining some Easter eggs or like things you missed in the latest episode, and this one caught my eye because a it's supposed to be a Easter egg, possible callback, possible big reveal that of He Who Remains of Kang the Conqueror in the show, because the guy at the end, the one who falls off, he like holds him at the edge of the cliff, and the guy who cuts himself off, he's wearing a denim jacket, and on the back of the jacket apparently is a drawing of a pharaoh's head crest, and it's the exact same design as a character in the comics known as Rama Tut, who is Kang the Conqueror in the past as a pharaoh. So the whole video that I watched was like, this is the way it's connected to everything. Like, this means that Rama Tut is an actual character in the MCU, and that this means that Kang the Conqueror is in the past, and then he's been there and done all this, and but and the
I mean, isn't that what Kang does? He travels time.
well, yeah. So it was, I don't know. It's such a very small Easter egg, and it was just a very like you have to like really be looking for like the back of this guy's uh
They sounded very
jacket.
excited about that Easter egg that may lead to nowhere significant, you
That's
know.
that's exactly how this video channel that I watch is. They are very excited about the littlest thing.
I think it would be cool if, yeah, if we see like a tomb of Rama Tut or whatever king is, just say, oh yeah, he was here as well, But
Yeah, this channel
yeah,
finds like the smallest Easter egg and does all sorts of crazy things with it. They go
it's
into,
called clickbait, my friend.
yes, they get
Clickbait.
into like the clickiest of clickbait. Uh,
Yes, maybe that's what we're missing.
that's what we're missing. Well, I'll have to work on
Yeah.
the thumbnails for the videos. Like,
You
comment, and
won't
subscribe.
believe the movies that this TV show ripped off.
Yeah, you won't believe the shows that we watched. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, 10 episodes, 6 episodes of Moon Knight that we just watched. Uh, but yeah, it was just an interesting thing in that little bit. But also at this point, right after that, we get into uh, we meet the other gods because they need a new way to find Amit's tomb, because they lost their leads from these people because they're all dead. Khonshu did have one good.
Khonshu needs a way, not the council.
Yeah, Khonshu, Mark, and everyone else, they need a way to Mark, Khonshu, Steven, whatever. They need a way to try and find Amit's tomb at this point, and they've killed all their leads. Khonshu had a good. I did want to go back and say Khonshu did have a good line. He's kind of my favorite comic relief in this, because he's like so serious, and he's so deadpan with his delivery when the guy falls off kills himself, and Khonshu's like, I thought he would talk. Like, it's like, dude, come on.
So I'm digging that, and I'm digging Steven's comedic relief more so than his presence as the active personality.
Hmm.
But it also feels like they're sort of overlapping each other. Like, it's sort of redundant
Yeah, yeah,
because we are getting like very heavy Venom vibes again, where all right, you have this prime supernatural character that is also comedic in a sense. Then you have Steven that's slightly grating, but is also starting to be very comedic in this episode. And yeah, it just feels a bit redundant. I hope that, well, they're halfway through the series, so I guess it doesn't matter that they make them more distinct. But yeah, I did notice like his dark humor is starting to make more of a presence in this episode.
yes. I enjoy his dark humor, but that brings us to the trial of Harrow amongst the other gods of Egypt, Horus, Isis. I think they call her Isis. Horus. I can't remember the other one's names. Uh,
Turn this because I was looking for it.
you were looking for those?
Uh, I couldn't understand the original. I think her name was Hathor's avatar,
Okay.
and her name is Yatsiel. That was the female.
Hmm.
Uh, and so I was looking for their names, and this could be I don't know if this is a spoiler. It was listed on the internet's like right on the search page. Her name is listed as Wendy Spectre.
Hmm.
So I don't know if
I don't know.
that is a spoiler or if all of these
Just
avatars
have
have the
Spectre as their
last
last
name
name.
of Spectre. I don't know. Or this could be a huge spoiler. I have no clue. But yeah, the other gods were Hathor, Osiris, Horus, Tefnut, and Isis, however you want to
Isis.
pronounce it.
Uh,
I don't know if I'm missing one,
there
but
there were five. It was the three in the front and the one on each side,
yeah.
and then Khonshu.
So to be clear, Arthur Harrow, he is the avatar for Amit, correct?
He was a former Khonshu avatar. I don't believe he's an
Right.
avatar for Amit because Amit is entombed. Amit is a dead god, or
Right. So that's what I'm trying to figure out because he definitely has powers gifted to him.
he has the staff that he can use to uh evoke her powers, it seems. Like he doesn't have any powers himself. He just has the staff that he can
The
use.
staff.
The
And the
staff.
staff is in no way powered by Amit.
No, it's like a leftover relic. It's kind of like the
Okay.
space stone. Like it has the power imbued in it, but it's not directly connected to the person. Like the way that it's more the way that the space stone connects to Miss Marvel or Captain
Mhm.
Marvel. She has the power inside her, but it's not the when the space stone is destroyed, it doesn't remove her powers because they're imbued in her. Do you kind of get it?
Or
Okay. Uh, but yeah, Harrow is on trial. We have a huge trial moment with all the other gods on Earth. It kind of gets into like where the other gods are. They all ran away, uh, and uh, Khonshu was like, "You guys all ran away, cowards!" And they're like, "We left because whatever," and that's why they're not actually. That's why they didn't help during the Infinity War Endgame. They weren't around. The avatars want nothing to do with dealing with humanity. The gods are just like, stay out of it. Same way the Eternals are.
so why do they need avatars then if they want nothing to do with humanity? Like what's the purpose of the
I,
avatars?
who knows? Maybe they have a greater purpose. They left them behind just to keep an eye on it, but not do anything. They're just observing, just observers. Like we just,
Lazy observers.
yeah. I
Uh,
mean,
the more loopholes in the Marvel universe keep opening up. I don't like it.
it's just they just have their reasons. They do stuff. Um,
There's good reasons.
yeah. Uh,
But anyway, they exist and they don't want to get involved, but they do get involved and they can teleport all the avatars instantly. when they need to hold one of their own on trial.
Yes, they have a little. They
Yeah.
make the little doorways, and they're like a doorway will open whenever they can.
So if they don't care, why do they like care that Khonshu was like playing spinny globe with
Well, they
the
care
stars?
because it seems like so. In my opinion, they care because it's showing off that like it's like you're showing off. It's you're using your powers to do something that you shouldn't. You're interfering with humanity. We've said don't interfere with humanity. Like we all left so that we
But those
wouldn't
Eternals.
interfere with humanity. The avatars are only channeling the gods. The gods aren't there.
Are we sure that these gods aren't also Eternals?
We're not,
That they're
which
just
is
like a
another
separate
thing.
group of Eternals.
They could, but I'm
I'd
pretty
feel
sure
it.
they're
I
not.
feel
You,
way better if they were just more Eternals that they don't know about each other and they're like, yeah, you guys are in Egypt. We don't know about you.
but then
We're the
like,
retired version,
but we
like
also
we're
have,
version 1.0.
well, we also have evidence of gods, the like Thor, who are actual just aliens. The
And Odin, who never wanted to interfere until he did.
he interfered a lot.
And
The Asgardians interfered a lot because they were over. They were actually fighting over in the Scandinavian countries and fighting giants on Midgard.
yeah,
So they actually got involved. Unlike, and apparently we're friends with the Eternals, but like still didn't know like why Thor
and
wasn't like,
Wakandans,
hey,
who
let me
also
go get
didn't
my
want to get
friend.
involved either.
Yeah, they didn't want to get involved.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, so we have the gods and
Somehow,
pantheons and whatever. It's
yeah,
all
somehow people
they
are
just don't
involved
want to get
now.
involved until it's too late. That's their thing.
Wow.
And the gods aren't there, just their avatars are. And they speak through their avatars, but they're not on Earth. They're in some other place. They mention a name of a place. They say like outer outer realm or something like that.
So their powers still work on Earth, even though they're not on Earth.
They can
It's like
communicate
Khonshu,
through. Khonshu's actually the
because it
only one
sounds like
who's there.
Khonshu's present there, like
Yes.
with Mark all the time, even though it sounds like he doesn't have to be, but he is.
No, it sounds like Khonshu has to be there if he wants to affect humanity like he wants to, whereas all the other gods were like, "Nah, we're not messing with anybody. We're off. But we're gonna leave our
Gosh.
avatars here."
How is Khonshu doing that besides giving Mark powers and
That's it. He's giving Mark powers, and
right?
but he can't
But we saw that the avatars had powers in the chamber, even though the gods weren't present.
only. What powers did they have in the chamber?
Who was
Oh,
the
they had they stopped. They like stopped
yeah,
Mark or
they
whatever.
slapped it.
That seems like it was in the chambers sort of thing.
Well, all right, let's just move on. This is
It's
aggravating me.
all right. Whatever. Moving on. After this scene, we find out that there's another way to find the tomb because some dude wrote down a map. Some guy like, oh, the scarab's not the only way to do it.
You have to find the sarcophagus
You have
now.
to find the sarcophagus that has a star chart.
If
But
only
this
there
is,
was some kind of drone technology to follow Harrow around, but I guess that doesn't
or
exist
just
in this world.
just get a satellite and take a picture of the freaking desert. How big? How hard can it be to find a dig site?
This mass group of
Just
people
a
digging out this
giant
tomb.
follow some car treads and go off into the desert. But we Layla shows up. They have like a moment on a trip as they're going to meet someone by the name of Mogert. We learn Anton Mogert.
Okay.
Yes, not yogurt, not Gogurt, Mogert.
So really quick with Layla, I don't know if they are alluding to or do you think they're actually married or is she just like an outside party that's manipulating
I think
Mark
they're
because
actually married.
that's what it makes it seem, but I didn't understand the point of her getting a fake passport and sort of involving herself and all that? Like perhaps she too is some kind of secret agent or something like that.
It's possible.
Oh,
But
she seems to have skills.
I don't know why Harrow would in the chamber say this man has a marriage license under the name Mark Spector. If that wasn't like public record that he probably found and was able to get, you know, there would
Suppose.
be I mean, that would be some deep manipulation on her part. It's very possible, but also I don't think
Right.
that, I think that that's an actual marriage because it also seems like Mark remembers it the same as well, like that they were married.
Right.
And
Right. Which is why I'm sort of hoping they're not going to ultimately reveal that she was also some kind of deep cover for something else and
yeah,
manipulating Mark and I don't know. But anyways, they meet Yogurt.
yeah, they meet Yogurt, who played by Gaspard Ulliel, who we lost this year. Just shortly, I mean, before the show actually
I think
premiered.
it was like just at the new year, like
Yeah, it was a
at some
skiing
point in
accident.
January. Yeah.
I believe it was a skiing accident, and it some of the articles around his passing did kind of go into like who his character was or what his character was. I do remember seeing those articles, and I thought they were a little bit spoilery because, as I remember them, some of them did mention he was playing the bad guy in the show. So when I did see Ethan Hawke, I was like, I thought it was that other guy that was supposed to be the bad guy, which is why I was also a little bit apprehensive as to whether Ethan Hawke was the actual bad guy or not.
Right.
But
I don't know, maybe because I was trying to look up his character's full name, and of course, Google
Google gives you
also
the,
stated
yeah,
his uh,
IMDb.
Midnight Man, I
Yeah.
think, which I don't know who that character is, so it's not much of a spoiler for me. So I'm wondering if, because we do see Harrow sort of show him the powers of the staff,
Hmm.
I suppose, and the possible powers of Amit. So I'm wondering if he decides to, in turn, maybe stab Harrow in the back and
Yeah.
take over as Amit's avatar.
Right. And one of the other things I think that I caught at the end was at the end of the big action scene was that Moon Knight throws one of his moonerangs at uh at Mogart and like in the back on the horse, but it like goes into the mist, so you don't see what happens.
The midst of the horse field.
The mists of uh the horse training area, whatever. But yeah, he
Well,
throws. So you don't know what happened to him, but he throws the thing, and he does get him. But that also leads into the big action scene in this episode, which is when Harrow shows up and convinces Mogart to turn on them, or convinces them that he has powers.
can I ask real quick, how did Layla know Mogart?
I
'Cause I
through
definitely
her
missed that part.
through her Egyptian contacts, it just didn't. It they didn't really. They just seem.
Is it
It seemed.
possible to visit Egypt without having contacts?
Yeah,
Like we
because
see that in Indiana Jones, like
no, you gotta know the locals.
it's just yeah, you got to know the
You
locals
gotta know the
and
locals. I mean, Death on the Nile, you gotta know the locals. They have a bunch of
yes, yeah, that's the part I was a little lost how she knew this philanthropist type guy that had the sarcophagus that he was very okay with showing off
and
to these two seemingly strange people.
it seemed like they had some sort of a relationship. Like she might have worked for him at a time and done some uh treasure hunting stuff for him, maybe. I can't tell you
You know,
specifically.
that would have been a fantastic explanation had they bothered to take 2
2 minutes.
sentences.
So
Yeah.
uh
Um,
to actually explain the relationship, yeah, it just seemed she did just say like I got us in, not how, but
right.
uh, they did.
Too bad they only had 6 episodes of story to
Yeah,
tell here.
if only they had gotten 7 or 8 episodes.
Yeah.
But Yeah, so Howard comes in and
What
kind of gets them, starts the action scene of this episode, the big set piece action scene that we get.
Where I
One,
think we got another 2 minutes of Moon Knight, possibly.
yeah, we got to see his power, more of his powers in action. We get to hear because we get Chekhov's healing powers of the suit, which
Yeah.
Khonshu kind of says in the first act of the show. He says, "You try going after Hauro without the healing powers of my suit," and then he gets stabbed like 9 times,
Oh
like
yeah, that was
fully
pretty
through.
right. And he's struggling for a while until he sees Layla sort of almost get killed, and then he just immediately breaks free of that and kills everyone in an
Yes.
instant.
But then
Um,
also, Steven takes over and is like, "Time out! Time out! Oh, cheerio, Bubs. Can we just not have a spot of tea? And
Bob's the uncle.
oh, we'd really like if we couldn't. You just wouldn't stab me so much. It's really quite unpleasant."
How
Steven.
long have you been working on that?
What?
How long have you been working on that?
My British accent?
Yeah, that was pretty good.
That's
Spot on.
spot on. It's been something I've worked on for quite a while. I've got a bit
Yeah.
more of a. I can go a little
So
Cockney. Get a little Cockney in
nah,
there,
that's okay.
brother.
So Steven can just take over whenever he wants now, because that was a little
No, I think
confusing.
no. It's still no, but again, it's
He
whenever the plot demands. It's
in that instant he did. I can't imagine Mark in the middle of trying to take all these guys out. It's like, all right, take over, Steven. And we see the reappearance of I guess Pimp Steven? Pimp
yeah.
Knight?
Night.
Whatever in the suit. Yeah, we'll go with Pimp Knight. And he immediately that he gets stabbed first, right?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's when the first impaling hit. He's like, take it back, take it back. All right, fine. Go ahead and kill all these people. That's fine. Uh, I don't know. I'm trying not to be so nitpicky about the action. I could go into a whole thing about that, but I just thought it
Go
was
for it,
weird
man.
how
Go into it.
uh, just to connect. I think it's like a Marvel thing in general, where a lot of their action is like so CGI heavy, where it would be nice to see more practical effects. And I get it's easier to just CGI the suit onto someone. Only because I mentioned that because within the last week or two, I think since No Way Home had a home release, that uh, they released video of Tom Holland doing like all these parkour moves, like the opening that bridge scene, that first main action sequence in the movie
Hmm.
of No Way Home. And I guess they had filmed this for the CGI team's reference points. And he was doing all these parkour moves on his own without wire harnesses, just like flipping over the hoods of cars and doing all these rolls. And I didn't know that Tom Holland was a gymnast, like when
Hmm.
he was younger. And he looked amazing. And they had all these camera movements. I'm like, why isn't this type of stuff in the movie? And when you're watching like the Spider-Man CGI stuff, especially in the daylight, it looks, it does look very computerized. It looks good, but not as cool as like a guy actually doing it.
Hmm.
I do miss like practical stunts, and it just reminded me of what I saw in Moon Knight in this episode when they're in that horse training area, and I'm assuming there was like an actual guy that the stunt team was fighting, but like the suit looked heavily CGI'd.
There
I thought
there was
Mhm.
one like scene or like just snippet where it for me it did look like a practical suit, which was like there's like one scene where he moves his arm and the chest part like shifts in such a way that it like looks like if they were doing it CG, it wouldn't have shifted. It would have stayed where it was. So
Yeah.
it looks like it moves. So there definitely is, I think, a practical suit that someone puts on in
Oh,
there.
sure. I think at
So
the end of the fight scene, especially when they're walking away from there,
mhm.
and he's still in the Moon Knight getup, that it's clearly a real suit. But there's some points. I think DC has actually been pretty good about this, and I'm more reminded about Batman, Superman when they're in the warehouse scene, and that's a practical suit in the Batman suit, real live actor, but they CGI the cape because that's probably the hardest thing to move around with. But there's someone actually doing the moves in the suit, and I kind of wish that's, you can forgive a CGI cape, but when the whole character looks CGI, in the motions of things, it kind of takes me out of it a little bit. I was, but that just being super nitpicky, just because I love practical effects so much and stunt work and all that.
Speaking of CGI capes, what do you think of the cape when he jumps out and it turns into a big moon?
It was okay, all
cool.
right, because you can't really get that to happen in real life, so okay, that was fine.
I like
Though
that.
I did question when, as soon as Mark turned into Moon Knight, all the bodyguards turn around. He's like, he's gone. Where'd he go? And so
on top.
he turns into Moon Knight only to jump to the top of that pyramid to only immediately jump back down and throw his moon knives.
Moonerangs.
Moonerangs, yes. So he makes himself an even bigger target. Not that it matters because he's got the armor. So it was just for a complete visual appeal.
Exactly. You got to make it when you're a superhero. You got to make an entrance.
Fine.
You got to make an entrance.
Okay, that fine.
Superhero landing all the way.
Yeah,
superhero landing. Superhero landing.
Layla, take on the bodyguard, and she stabs him in the shoulders or something. And then this is another super questionable action piece because we see her pick up a gun and run towards that horse stable training area where Moon Knight's fighting. And they show the fence where one part is broken, and then there's actually a huge gap in the fence. And then they see her taking steps to her left to jump over the fence, which I couldn't understand why they would bother showing that, because then she's immediately knocked on her ass by a yogurt. But I'm like, why? Questionable set pieces like that, or action pieces where the fence is clearly open, just run through there instead of jumping over the high point of the fence, and then they cut away from her landing. So I didn't understand
because she fell.
That probably, but also completely unnecessary because she didn't need to jump over the fence. But yeah, again, it's not like that destroyed the scene for me. I was just scratching my head during that part.
Right.
I don't. It's minor stuff like that. There was that one instance in Hawkeye during that horrible, which you seem to love, bridge destruction.
It's great
with the arrow.
Go on.
And when Hawkeye and other Hawkeye jump off the bridge, the gang immediately decides to shoot right off the bridge instead of aiming down to where they're falling. They just shoot straight off the bridge. I'm like, they just jumped 2 seconds ago and they're falling, and you guys are shooting out into the open ocean, pretty much. So it's just things like that. I'm like, that's just kind of lazy. Why? I don't know.
If bad guys made good decisions, the good guys would never win.
That is true, but this was also Layla, who I'm assuming is a good person, just deciding to jump over the fence of a broken fence. But the action seemed okay. Again, other than the very CGI heavy suit. I don't know. What'd you think about it?
I mean, I enjoyed it. Again, I liked
around in the sand a lot or whatever.
Yeah, I liked seeing all the stabbies. It was there were some early on reports that this was going to be the most brutal Marvel show on. So I don't know if this is what they were talking about, where he gets stabbed a bunch of times, but there's no blood, and people get stabbed a lot, and there were a lot of gunshots, but no blood.
Disney Plus show we've seen. I think it's the most brutal Disney Plus show we've seen, technically.
Yeah, I mean, it's brutal. It is they do show he gets impaled 3 times, but at the same time, he just no blood.
It doesn't
obviously
match with Daredevil or Punisher.
Yeah.
Which is what I think this character leans towards, and we're not seeing that.
Yeah, because they show a lot of, and then when they do show blood, when he stabs the dudes in the beginning of the show, this episode, it's always post the stabbing, and he just has the blood on him, like nothing.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's so brutal. He's got blood everywhere, but like he didn't show how the blood got there. Show me whose blood it
So
is. Uh,
if they showed that, like the actual more physicality, would this markedly improve the show for you? Or would that just improve an aspect of the
I think
show
it
for
would
you?
improve an aspect of the show. I don't think it would improve the show overall. It would be like, oh, this show is like it would like darken the show a little bit. It would make the show a little bit
Sure.
darker. Um,
I agree, but I think you
but
also need that because the dichotomy of like a Steven to a Mark, like I don't think they show enough of that brutality to
mhm,
what makes them that different.
yeah,
It's just like one is silly and one is just a serious one versus one is just a regular guy and another is like a trained killer.
right.
And we're not seeing that much of a difference. And then you add Moon Knight on top of it, and I guess he's supposed to, I guess, magnify their personalities in a sense.
Mhm.
So maybe the killer Moon Knight is just a magnification of Mark's personality, or maybe not. I'm not sure how that character is supposed to go, but it there's definitely something lacking for me in the show, and it's not just because there isn't blood or enough brutality, but it doesn't help that they're not differentiating those personalities enough.
Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah, there there's a lot of stuff in the show that like they could intensify a little bit, but I do think they're still pulling back to keep that PG-13 Marvel Disney
Right.
kind of thing. But
And I'm
uh,
wondering if that's just a recent decision because when they have put Daredevil, like all the Netflix shows on there, right?
they just recently got them, I believe. And I
Right. And they did put like an age restriction on Disney Plus, at least in I guess North America or the US now. So I think they're testing whether or not that they can put, more mature content on there. And I'm sure like Moon Knight was filmed way before they ever
thought about it.
thought about that. Yeah.
That's
But
possible.
I guess we'll see in the future.
We'll see in the future. After the action scenes, we get a little bit more Mark and Layla because Harrow does some manipulation. He gets all manipulative in what their deal is, and he like tries to convince Layla that Mark is more than he seems, or less than he seems, or not what he seems. Um, I mean, I think their whole relationship in this episode kind of was explored a little bit more, but still like not really explained. Didn't uh, really go anywhere for me. What'd you think about their relationship? I was just like, okay, like there's definitely something there. Don't know if it's all going to be
Saying
resolved
that
by the end of the
there is
episode.
a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't know. We're halfway through the show now officially
Hmm.
of 3 of 6 episodes. Um, I definitely feel whatever happened in these 3 episodes could have been condensed into 2.
Yeah, maybe
Like there was a lot of setup for Steven and the museum, which ultimately doesn't seem like it
it's relevant anymore.
matters all that much.
It's not relevant at all.
Um,
Well, it's only relevant in that it's what it sets up is
he's
at the end of this
knowledgeable.
episode, Stephen uh being the one who knows all of the information. Like Steven's the books guy
Right,
and Mark is the punchy
right.
punchy guy. So it does
Which I
set that
think
up, but
could have been set up without that because all we see is that he's just a clerk in a gift shop, and that doesn't necessarily mean that he has knowledge.
he does
He could
because
have been some bookish.
they do set up that he's like he tries to do the tour thing because he has all the information,
All
and they're
right,
like, "Stop trying to
I
do the
get that.
tour. Where you get back in behind the counter? Go sell some more
But my
cats."
point is, he could have been a bookish guy studying in a library or a student or an adjunct professor. We didn't need to spend an episode and a half of him in,
London.
the museum for it to not really matter. But
That's
I'm
true.
interested in seeing what Amit's Amit Harrow and Yogurt's connection is or how that plays out. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. Yes, but all right, so we're at the midpoint right now.
We're of the
Uh,
show or of the episode?
of, of the show
Oh, okay.
of Moon Knight. This Moon Knight is what, like the 5th series so far on Disney Plus. We've had
This is
Vision, WandaVision,
WandaVision,
Falcon, Winter Soldier,
Falcon, Loki,
Loki,
Hawkeye, and then this
Hockey,
Hockey,
and the
Hawkeye,
so
and this. Yeah.
5th. Would you say so far Moon Knight is at the top of your list?
No, Loki's definitely like a hard one. Like is a number one. Like hard to beat.
Sure.
Number one.
Would you say so far Moon Knight's in the top 3 of 5?
Top 3 of 5. So far probably not. But again, maybe by the end, if the CGI battle in episode 6 is really cool, I'll be like, yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same. I don't know if a CGI battle is gonna save it for me, but guess we'll find out.
We'll find out. But
Yeah.
we're back in the desert with Layla and Mark, and they've got a star chart at the end of the episode. They've got to try and figure out what to do. And only Steven is the one who can save them. So they have to get Steven into the body, let him fold up the origami star chart that makes a star? What? Who knew? What? Why would an Egyptian yeah, why would an Egyptian make a 5-pointed star chart? That doesn't make any sense. I don't think Egyptians had
It makes
5-pointed
total sense
stars.
if you think about the logic of the show so far.
Like, I know there's some logic, like some things I'm like I'll excuse a lot of like continuity errors and stuff like that, but when you make a star chart in the shape of a 5-pointed star, I mean, come on. Did Egyptians even have 5-pointed stars? I'd have to look that up. But
One interesting character point, it seems like Layla was very charmed by Steven at that point, like with his knowledge of that. I don't know if that's going to lead to a weird love sort of triangle.
Is it a triangle if it's still the one body? Yeah, I don't know.
But she uses Google Sky to triangulate stuff and hack her iPad, and
yeah, but it doesn't work
because with the stars, right? Because the constellations are different.
Anyone who knows anything about star charts would know the sky is different 2,000 years ago. And even then, 2,000 years ago does not seem like long enough ago for this to have happened, personally. Like 2,000 years ago, that's it. But again,
yeah,
you know what screws up the timeline? The Eternals screws up the timeline so much.
The Eternals screws up a lot of things.
Eternals screws up a lot of things when you're like, oh, they were 5,000 years ago, and then Eternals, they were in Babylon in 539 BC or whatever. It's just messes up the timeline for a lot of things.
Who knows?
Who knows? But with the star chart, Khonshu starts, because they need to find the correct constellations. Khonshu starts swiping right on those stars. Like, swipe right. Just do what I do.
Like
swipe right. Wax off.
Like the globes that we had in school, and then you would just spin it like a basketball.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah. Let's see how fast we can go.
Do like I do.
Apparently everyone in Egypt could see it. I don't know if that applied to the rest of the world.
I also don't know if it applied to I assume it didn't, because it was nighttime in Egypt, but it's not nighttime in the rest of the world.
Wow. That's actually a great point. So why would the council get so pissed off then? Because they immediately call Khonshu in.
Because he did it in Egypt. Like, that's where they're the gods of.
I'm thinking like people like everywhere else on that side of the world are like, oh my god, look what the Egyptian gods are doing. I'm sure nobody thought that. 0 people outside of Egypt.
Exactly, and that's why the Egyptian gods are like, "Yo, you're messing, you're screwing things up, Khonshu. We said don't get involved.
But what is he screwing up that they don't care enough to be involved? It's like, all right. So some stars went spinning for a minute.
We
Who
warned
cares?
you. We warned you. We
Yeah.
gave you a warning. If listen, warnings
Yeah.
without consequences are useless. My wife tells me that all the time for raising children.
That's why you get spankings.
That's why if you say you're gonna do something, you got to follow through. Uh, but we get Khonshu because he does that. He gets imprisoned. Seems like he take. It's weird because the Mark Steven, whoever it is still in the suit, but the headpiece comes back off. Khonshu disappears for a minute because he's imprisoned in stone. Uh, because he did a naughty thing. Don't do naughty things. Uh, you get in trouble with the Egyptian gods. So he gets imprisoned. Does that mean that Moon Knight is now powerless? Does that mean that Moon Knight is now on his own? What is
You would think so, but then Harrow does have a staff,
right?
so maybe Khonshu imbued the suit with powers, so now the suit is imbued, but not actually powered by
It's very possible.
Khonshu. So
So he
yeah,
might still
why
have the
not?
suit. I mean, the suit didn't completely remove itself from him, just the head part.
Yep.
And Mark Steven collapses in the sand, and we don't know. It's weird because Layla's like, Steven, Mark. She doesn't know what name to say to try and wake him up.
You
Uh,
should just combine the names and call him
yeah, Robert,
Dark.
Dark, Moon Knight. So that brings up to the question: who's going to wake up in the body? Bets on. Who are you betting on?
Not a clue.
Come
Not a
on,
clue.
you gotta
I don't
pick.
know.
You gotta coin flip here, man. It's either gonna be Mark's gonna wake up in the body, Steven's gonna wake up in the body. 50-50 shot. Who you got? I'll give you if you really want. It could be the third personality. You got a
No, let's go
33%.
with the third.
You're gonna go with it's the third personality.
Let's go with the third personality.
I'm gonna say it's gonna be Mark. I'm gonna say Mark wakes up in the body. I'm gonna write this down, and we'll come back to this next week after we've watched episode 4. Who wakes up in the body?
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay. Fair enough. Um, I do have a quick question. Do we know why or if the rest of the gods know where Amit's tomb is?
I don't believe they do because they would have just told him, or at least the other god would have been like, he's buried here, she's buried here.
So why
Not
don't they know if um Khonshu was around there then, at least to remember the constellations of that night, but he doesn't know where Amit was buried?
yeah, I don't think any of them do.
Which
That's
seems like a big deal since that's a fellow god, right?
yeah, I don't know if
It's like, oh, look at where these stars are sitting exactly, and I'll remember this for thousands of years, but not where my fellow god that
well
died.
he's the god of the night sky. That's the one thing he's in charge of. He knows that. He's the god of the moon and the night sky. Like if he didn't know the
He's not
stars,
like
he'd be
he
like,
can
What's the
manipulate
point?"
whenever he wants.
What?
He's got to answer to the council whenever he uses the night sky. So
Well, back when they were the Egyptian gods and they were happy to reign over the world, he probably didn't have to. He could do whatever the f he wanted. But now they're like, don't get involved.
there's a lot of presumption there.
There's a lot of stuff they just don't they don't explain. You just got to assume like, hey, I don't want to get involved.
That's my point. There's a lot, so much they don't explain.
But like,
So much.
it's kind of like shown.
It's
Like,
kind of lazy
it's
writing.
kind of just like okay. They can't explain everything. They
It's
just show you stuff that's cool and
not everything, but I'm saying there's like certain like big plot holes that they should try and at least put some effort into.
know that they're plot holes.
said absolutely plot holes.
Because he knows what the night sky looked like, but he doesn't remember where the tomb is.
Yes,
But he wasn't there burying him,
absolutely.
and everything moved.
You would
I
think if
don't.
a fellow god died, that's not a big deal.
Well, they imprisoned the god. I
Like
thought.
they
I
would
don't know what they
all
did with him.
be like witnessing, and you know, they
Oh,
can
they got
see
other
when
stuff
Moon Knight
to do.
casts an eclipse on the moon, but they don't know when a fellow god dies or where they're buried.
No, they probably do. They just don't want to. They don't want to help you find the god. They don't want to. There's reasons, man. I don't have to explain everything
What?
to you.
How are you, the writers?
I don't need to be the writers and explain
What
things to you.
happens? I don't
You
need to
just need to
explain
think
nothing.
for a minute about what's going on. Just need to, give it a thought. Like, oh, the gods, like, because it's Amit's tomb. It's not necessarily like that the god is dead, because the god is probably imprisoned the same way that Khonshu is imprisoned, and then they put the imprisoned thing in a tomb, but it's not dead. It's just otherwise they wouldn't be able to free Khonshu from the tomb. We'll get into this at the end of the freaking series when they explain everything.
I'm sure they'll explain it all perfectly.
They'll explain everything perfectly, just like they did at the end of Hawkeye, how it explained everything that was going on exactly, all tied up in a nice bow. Why they
We
didn't,
found out why that watch was so important and why he needed the Ronin suit. Why that caused him to.
why he couldn't burn it on the grill earlier.
Yeah.
All of that stuff.
Or why it was even around in the first place, or why people even knew about it. Well,
It was all explained. It was all tied up neatly in a bow, just like this
yes.
series will.
Yes.
But that's it, I think, for episode 3
Yes,
of Moon
please.
Knight. This has been what we just watched with the FlimFlam film fans. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to hit the like button if you liked it. Leave a comment below with complaints about the things that we got wrong or the things that we got right. Hit the bell for notifications on all the things FlimFlam film fans, and to hear all about the things that we just watched. Thank you and good night.